Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Neil Macpherson here with BigPictureBlueprints.com. Very excited to bring on a very special guest today, Reverend Dr. Sir Colin Theriot. He can tell you about those titles and how he acquired them on his own accord. But anyway, Colin is one of the best copywriters around, pretty much, especially in the internet marketing space. He's kind of the guy that everybody looks to for advice on how to position their offers and et cetera, et cetera. Most likely, I already know who he is, so I don't have any reason to really build him up that much. I'm excited to have him on here. You want to say hi real quick, Colin? Just say thank you for doing
Hey everybody, glad to be here. Just chat with you this afternoon with my good buddy Neil. Talk about some stuff. Hopefully you'll find it useful, if not inspirational.
I just realized that whole opening sequence I had, it was all you. They were just looking at you the whole time. So.
It's all good.
No worries.
I'm handsome. I can live with that.
Yeah. One day I strive to have a beard like you, sir. Sir Dr. Reverend. Sorry.
Well, the big secret is stop shaving.
Nice. There you go. Take that. You can walk away right now and just, you don't need to watch the rest of this interview. All right, cool. So, as you can tell, this is probably going to be pretty loose and uncut. But I do expect Colin to drop some good stuff for us here today. So, take some notes, pay attention, grab a beer, sit back, relax, and hopefully enjoy it. So, I got a sort of a loose outline here. We'll see where it takes us. Bottom line is one of the main things that I want to bring Colin on about today is to kind of share just some of the things he's been able to do with the cult of copy, if you may or may not be familiar with that, and just in general how he's been able to sort of get himself from where he was or wherever he was back in the day to being able to go hang out and have pizza and beer all afternoon if he feels like it, right? I had to get him away from the bar to get him on the interview. No, I'm just kidding. But
it is just next door. I mean, I pick my office very carefully. There's a bar there, and there's a bar there. There's 4 bars there, and there's 2 bars over there. So I like variety.
And I could imagine they've gotten to know you well.
Yeah. First name basis everywhere.
Colin, welcome back. All right, man. So let's kind of get into it, if you don't mind. Basically, the way I like to start off is just, kind of tell us how you got into what you're doing, internet marketing, copywriting. Where you started, what shack you were living in back in the day,
right?
And how you got to where you are today. If you want to just kind of give us a quick background, if you don't mind.
Sure. Back in 2007. I was doing like just sort of general e-commerce site management for a computer company. They sold, like, if you're familiar with like Alienware or something, like you go on their website and you pick all your parts in a computer and then they ship it to you. We used to do that, but it was a much smaller company. And I quit that job and went to work for like a similar e-commerce kind of store, but the guy who owned that e-commerce store, him and his business partner had got together and launched this company called StomperNet, which was like sort of SEO training for e-commerce store owners. So it was very high-end kind of thing. And I just happened to be working there at the time, and like, it was a startup. So they're like, hey, you know how to make web pages, come help us out for an evening or whatever. So I helped them out, and as that company grew, they sort of poached me, and I ended up over there, and it was like very high-end marketing, internet marketing stuff, like business training for business owners on like everything from like conversion to copy, graphics, SEO, all that stuff. And one day they only had one writer, and she wrote everything, whether it was like blog posts or emails or stuff for the members or marketing stuff. And she was either sick or too busy, I can't remember exactly, but I volunteered, and they liked the work that I did, so they're like, you're the chief marketing copywriter now, so like when you're not writing stuff, your job is to like get good at writing stuff. So I worked there full-time for almost 3 years doing that, just basically everything, writing blog posts, emails, sales letters, sales video scripts, all kind of stuff. And they had a big staff of like a bunch of well-known marketing guru type dudes who were like faculty that were there to teach the members how to do whatever their area of expertise was. So even though I didn't realize it at the time, I basically was getting paid to learn copy and marketing stuff from some of the best, most high-end people in my particular space. So when I went freelance, it's like word sort of got around that I used to work for this company that was really well known and really profitable, and now I was taking on new clients. So almost immediately, via word of mouth, I was getting high-end copywriting clients doing basically the same kind of work I had done before. And I freelanced doing that for a couple of years, but what my plan was the whole time was that having worked for these guru type guys who had this dedicated fan audience who saw them as like an expert in their field and just bought everything that they referred them to, I knew that was a lot easier than being a copywriter for hire because I wrote all their stuff. You know what I mean? I knew it was not that hard to do the work of it because I was doing it and I wasn't that guy. So I knew what I wanted to do was take copywriting as sort of like leverage, like that was going to be my expertise, and then I was going to use that to speak and write and do content and build an audience as an expert, and then sell information as an expert instead of doing a service forever. And that's basically what I do now. I teach other copywriters. I write about copywriting. I consult. I sell products that teach people how to do copywriting. That's basically it. I shifted from doing writing for other people to just being an expert who talks about copywriting all the time.
Nice. That's pretty cool because you kind of saw you had it all sort of planned out from the get go. I mean, something I talk about a lot in my business or when I talk to you is leveraging what you have and making it work for you. And you had an opportunity, and then you kind of saw the path, and then you made it happen. And it almost sounds to me, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, like you did this service, like you wrote people's copy for a little while just to sort of prove that you could do it for other people, knowing that
Yeah,
you were doing
yeah. Like when you want like a guru persona and you want to set yourself up as an expert in a market, you need some sort of like legend or like result that you can use as your claim to fame, like the thing that you're known for, well,
it.
like
Yeah.
the core reason why anybody's going to listen to you in the first place. And even though sort of behind the scenes it was known that I wrote the copy for that company Stompernet, everything I wrote was under the owner's name. So like if you were involved with them and you knew behind the scenes that I was the staff writer, you knew that I did it. But for the general public, they sort of presumed, hey, that guy's a marketing expert. He must write his own stuff, even though he didn't. Not like he could. I'm not saying he wasn't able, but it was a huge company, and that's what you do. You just hire people to do your busy work that you don't want to do. So I knew when I went freelance, I needed to get some similar results under my own name that I could claim publicly.
Mhm.
And that was like the core. That was like the first thing that you need in order to start building your sort of guru legend, I guess you would call it. So I got those results writing those launches, and then I finagled my way into speaking gigs, speaking on stage about how to write copy. And then from there, it was about creating products where I could turn my competitors into customers, which is a really big trick for anyone paying attention. You basically don't have to compete with anybody if you turn your competition into customers. So instead of competing with other copywriters to write this guy's launch letter, that guy's launch letter, I made money from everybody writing launch letters that were using my template. So I just made a template and sold it to the other copywriters. And some guys I even had like referral deals with. So guys that I used to compete with for the same job, instead, because I was on stage and like making a name for myself, people would ask me if I knew a copywriter that could write their letter, and I would refer it out and then get a kickback from that job. So I was getting paid to not write copy, which is which is infinitely preferable to getting paid to write copy because it's less work.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll try not to interrupt you. You know, I get these ideas and I randomly interrupt.
That's all right, Neil. I know I know it's you. It's all good.
No, that's good stuff though, man. And the one thing I took from that whole thing you just said is you leverage what your success. You know, you had some success with StomperNet, which just for people who don't know what StomperNet was, that was like 5 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, like I quit them in like '09.
Which is right when I kind of came online, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you saw this as an opportunity. Hey, I got some success here. I'm gonna leverage this, and then you just kept. I made the mistake of not doing that in my past, so I definitely understand. What you're saying. So.
Yeah, the trick is you shouldn't look at your result as something that you're constantly chasing. So I know a lot of people that got into copywriting that their heroes have these like 30-year careers in writing copy. And oh, I wrote this control and I wrote that letter. I didn't really want to go that route. I very quickly wanted to like hit a few home runs and then use that to build something else of value. And like I knew what I was doing. And never like if someone tried to hire me and I'm like, your sales material is better than what I could write, I wouldn't take the job. I was very selective about picking projects that I knew, like, no matter what copywriter they hired, they were going to sell a shitload. I don't know. Can we cuss on here? um, um, so basically, like, if this, like, say a potential client was like, I have a $2,000 product. We're relaunching it. We sold this many units before. I have the same list. They're hot. We're going to hit them again. I just want to refresh the letter. Even though I charge 5 figures to write a sales letter, if your product costs $2,000, you don't have to sell a whole lot to give me $10,000. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So that's one of those things where, like, I already was serving a higher end client, and then no matter what, with the resources this client had, I knew he was going to sell like $8 or $9 million worth of product on his launch with the support and everything. All I had to do was not mess it up. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no.
I could turn in an amazing letter, but at that price point, it's like you're not expecting huge conversions. So even though you get a ton of traffic on that price point, you're still expecting like single digit conversion rates. And if they had previous material that they did that worked, and I could skim it and say, okay, well, I know like these bullets could be improved. Their guarantees not clear. They don't do good price objection stuff. Like I could basically say, yes, I can fix this and make it better. And as long as I did, they made a bunch of money. They made more than enough to pay me a big amount of money. And like the reputation that I wrote that copy is something I can claim, you know, and anybody that knows launch stuff, you know, like the copy's only part of it, but I deliberately picked projects that I knew would look really good, like on a resume of like, oh, he wrote the copy for that. That's amazing. And that's something I try to recommend to copywriters is pick your projects based on what you want to brag about having written for. And that way you're like building a legendary status behind yourself that's not just like, oh, I wrote every client that came across my desk, I said yes. You know, like instead, if you take the bigger projects and even angle for it, like try to network, try to get connected and like sell yourself to get those jobs, then you have the kind of reputation where people start coming to you because you've written for these famous things that everybody's heard of.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, man. And that's the one thing I kind of what I like to do is just sort of pass on my takeaway from what you said and being selective about who you take on and using that like in your bigger picture, what you're looking for down the line. Just an example of like, when I first started taking on local clients, I knew I wanted to eventually teach people how to do local marketing before I'd ever landed a client. And I had opportunities to work with like pizza shops and whatever, and I was like, no. And then I went in the yacht niche, knowing that carried a big value. Oh wow, he's working for these people.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's good stuff right there. All right, let me just check back with my questions real quick.
Sure.
Like I said, I don't edit anything, so whatever. Okay, so obviously copywriting is kind of your bread and butter. You already sort of talked about how you learn. You learn. Oh, what's up?
No, I just coughed. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Looking down here. So, is there any like particular? Let's say you weren't working for Burnett at the time. Like looking back now, okay, somebody who's like, I want to duplicate what Colin's done or follow down that same path. Is there any particular people that you learned a lot from, or recommendations you have as far as getting started in that direction? Or if not,
I would say if you're super serious that you want to go the route of becoming like a freelance copywriter, don't go freelance first. Try and get a job writing copy as the in-house copy guy for a company that does a lot of offers, because you're going to get paid to learn on the job, and you learn more from doing it than just studying it. So if you're working for a company that has like a big list and you're writing emails for that list, you're hands-on with that list in a way that you wouldn't be if you're freelancing and just writing things for this client and another client. You know, like usually when you're doing freelance stuff, you don't really get to play with that kind of thing and learn what really works or what doesn't work. And if you get a job at a company that does that, you get access to those kind of assets that you can learn from, and you're in an environment where, like I said, if they're already established, you you can mess up more as you learn because they already have a reputation with their customers, so you're not like going cold. And I mean, it's just the best situation because you get paid to figure out what you're doing. And I know it's I can't really recommend it any other way because that's the way I did it. But from talking to a ton of other copywriters, I really do think that's a great way to go about it, because if you can't do it for a living on someone else's dime as an employee, then doing it freelance is definitely not going to be for you. And going freelance cold is a lot harder uh, than other things, because not only do you have like you got to learn how to write copy and how to serve your clients, but you're also in charge of just being a business in general and keeping the books and invoicing and doing all that other stuff. So it's a much bigger learning curve that if writing copy is something you think you want to do, you go get a job doing it where someone else is worrying about the business side. And then once you know you have the copy stuff down, then you can go freelance, because then you only have to learn like how to be your own business and serve clients by yourself. Then you know, like, I can definitely do the copy part, and then you don't have two things to juggle. So that's what I would recommend.
that makes perfect sense. It's kind of funny that the advice from a freelance entrepreneur is go get a job, but
Right.
but,
Well, I mean, it's there's no way to know if you can do it, if you even like doing it, unless you actually do it. And like I said, it's by going and getting a job doing it, you can test your passion and your ability. Because writing, the thing people most misunderstand about writing is like the creative part, the thinking part. That's easy. Everybody thinks they can be a writer, but can you sit down at a keyboard and write for 8 hours?
yeah,
Like, that's hard. Like, people don't think it is, but like sit there and just write and write and write and write, and like your arms, like, I know it sounds wussy compared to like digging ditches or whatever, but like it's fatigue. Like, it's mental fatigue, it's physical fatigue, it's work. And when you're on a deadline and you have to grind it out, and like you write something for a client and the headline's not pulling and he wants like, give me some variants to try. Can you like sit there and in an hour come up with 50 headlines? Like, if you can't, then you need, it's like, what do they call it? Like when you're a musician and you're trying to learn to play guitar and they tell you need to build up your chops, which is just like, you need to get the arm strength and the finger control to even be able to begin to play cool stuff. And the only way you get that is by sucking at it and trying every single day until you like build it up. Well, it's like the same thing. And when you get a job serving someone else, you're less responsible for the total result, and they're paying you to learn it. And if 6 months into that you decide, you know what, like, I hate writing, it sucks, then you didn't quit like a perfectly good job and, put all your money into starting this business that it turns out you hate, you know?
dude, yeah.
So, yeah, like more so than other things. Like if you're just doing affiliate marketing stuff, that's like a whole different arena. But like if you want to be like writing copy and taking on a bunch of clients, that's one thing I would say to anyone who hasn't jumped in freelance, it's a lot more work than you think up front. Because every project that you agree to, consider that like it's twice as much work than what you agreed to, because of the back and forth and the, correcting this, making variants. Oh, we changed the project a little. Oh, we need the extra email here. So, like, I don't know, there's just a lot of wrinkles that you're going to do when you go into business for yourself, doing a service business like that, that it's just way easier to let somebody else hire you and pay you to figure it out. And if you hate it, quit and go do something else. And then you're not sunk because you put all this money into a business that you don't even like doing.
Yeah, man, I totally understand what you're saying. I was trying to get my train of thought here real quick. I went the opposite way of you. I basically, like, I went to, when I got my first clients, I was like, yeah, I can build you that website. Yeah, I can write it. Like, yeah, no problem. I really didn't, I mean, I knew what I was doing, but I didn't really, like, fully knew what I was doing. And, looking at it the other way, if I had just went and got a job as, like, a basic, SEO person or PPC person, or, like, well, I had a client come to me and say, hey, can you do AdWords? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I really, no clue what I was doing, but at the time, and then that was a long, hard, pain in the ass road. And when I think about it the other way around, I probably would have made more money and made it a lot easier. And then like you said, if you don't like it, you just quit and move on. Whereas when you take on the clients, it's a lot more responsibility. I like what you said as far as, like, it's just figure it's going to be twice as much as you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
And so much what you said applies to not just selling copywriting, but basically selling any service. Like,
any service business at all, I would recommend. I mean, like there's no chef who gets out of culinary school and immediately opens a restaurant, or maybe they do, but maybe that's why restaurants like have such a high failure rate. Like, you go work at another famous restaurant and learn how they run the ship and how they do everything, like from front of the house to back of the house. Then you go open your own restaurant. You don't just like walk out of cooking school and you're like, well, I'm a chef, let's open our doors. There's just a lot.
You can. That's what I do.
You can, but there's a lot more to the business side of it. That's like its whole separate thing, right? Like, you can go to school just to learn how to run any business, right? You can get a degree in that and go work at any business because that you just learn business in general. So it's that complicated of a topic, and if you're not 100% sure on how to do the service you're trying to sell, go learn how to do that on someone else's dime and do a good job for them, so you have that part on lock. You can do that part, and then when you start your own business, you only have one thing to worry about instead of two. But that's not to say if you want to fly by the seat of your pants, you can't do it the way that you did, because I know a lot of guys that did it that way, where they'll agree to whatever they can do, and then they either go try to learn how to do it or they hire somebody to do it. And that's just as plausible. But for what I wanted to do specifically, where I wanted to build myself up as an expert in copywriting, I had to be the one to do it. Like,
yeah, no, it just seems like a lot easier route.
It wouldn't have worked if I was like, yeah, I'll take on that copywriting job, and then I hire someone to do it. Then I'm not a copywriting expert. So for what I wanted to do, I knew I had to do it, and I'm not a business-minded person, so I knew that was going to be the hard part. So like I said, I got the learning curve out of the way by doing it on someone else's dime.
It's smart, man. That's smart, and it's just a great insight for anybody who's kind of trying to figure their way or decide what to do, or and look at what your end result is, and then figure out what's going to be the best way to get there, the easiest route to get there, right? Okay, so you kind of talked about a little bit. We already kind of covered as far as, like, you say you charge 5 figures, or you used to. You
Right.
can't even really hire you now, which is pretty awesome. How did you go about separating? You kind of already talked about it, so we could probably skip that a little bit. But as far as, like, a lot of people really struggle at charging what they're worth, or
Right.
what they think should be worth. So how did you come out and say, I'm charging 5 figures and that's it, and then get people to pay that when there's a lot of other people who are, like you said, I've been doing this for 20 years and I have this many letters under my belt, and they don't even charge a fraction of that? Was it just balls, basically?
Kind of. Well, what it is when I went freelance, The first person who hired me was my old boss from the previous company, and I didn't even like name a number. He just paid me 5 figures for the sales letter I wrote. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, this is what this costs on the open market. And then he referred me to someone and told them that that's what I charged. So he sort of did me that favor. But like I said, all of the people I was doing that work for had $2,000 info product type things, right? So at that price point, it wasn't a whole lot to pay me. And most other copywriters that write at that price point actually charge more than me, and they want like royalties. And I don't charge royalties, I just charge the flat fee. So even though for the majority of people in our mutual market, what I charge seems high, I was actually on the low end in the market I was writing for. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that is I worked in that market providing those services, but then in our mutual market, like where like 4 figures is a lot for a copywriter, those are the people I wanted to be like students of mine. So I deliberately was like, I'm serving these people up here on the top of the mountain, and then when I turn around to teach people, I'm going to aim lower so that when I make 5 figures, that's impressive to the people on this side of the line. Whereas on the other side, they're like, well, I make points. I make 25 grand and I make points. And I'm like, well, I charge 10 grand, so I'm cheaper. Um,
Sweet spot, kind of.
yeah, yeah. So the idea there is I wanted to be affordable for the kind of person that would get me results that were impressive to the level of people that I wanted to sell to. So the way to, I guess to answer your question, the way to get the higher ticket customers is to look for people who have more expensive products. And then what you charge is really a function of what they're going to make. So, you know, like I knew what my skills were, so I could look at their material when they came to me for help, and I could tell like if I could do a better job or not, or if there were things I could do to improve what they had already done. So having known that, like from working at a marketing company where I got to test those things out, I could look at their material, I knew for sure I could improve it, and I knew for sure with the price they were charging, it wouldn't be much for them to pay me, and they would make a bunch more money. It wasn't hard to get that job, you know.
Yeah.
It was a combination of a little bit of reputation, the fact that I had been referred to them, and then I could look at their project and tell if I could actually help. And what's good about charging a huge amount is you don't need to do that many projects a year. So I could afford to say no and wait until the right project came along because I had a nice pile of cash that I was living on from my previous project. Um, Whereas if you're charging way too little, you're always hungry, you always have to be taking on projects, and chances are those much bigger projects are passing you by because you didn't even notice they were happening because you were too busy doing all these little projects for people.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. I was the guy undervaluing myself and charging $500 to people who were selling $1 million yachts. And I learned my lesson the hard way. But yeah, it makes sense. You know, you can see two different paths and the way you sort of went about those things. All right, cool. So now, once you got it, eventually you hit a point where you said, okay, I don't want to do copywriting anymore. I'd rather teach it. I'd rather take on coaching clients. You want to talk a little bit about kind of how you got into coaching and yeah, where you were able to find those clients and how you're able to
Yeah,
plug them and what exactly you sort of did for them?
sure. One thing I did before I started the current group that I run when I was still doing copy is the price that I charged was sort of unaffordable to the people in the audiences when I would go and speak and things. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they were just getting started. They had low ticket products in like the $20 to $100 range. They weren't dropping 10 grand on a sales letter. So what I started offering to them is you hire a copywriter you can afford, and I'll review it and tell you what you need to fix to improve it. And I would just go through with my checklist that I would normally use in my own projects, and I would record a little video for them walking through their sales letter, telling them what I would change and why, and they would get like a mind map of notes on what they needed to do, and I would charge like $750 to $1,000 for that. So in some cases, they're paying $1,000 for someone to write it, and then paying me just as much to read it and tell them why it sucks. And then I would give it back to them, and the writer would fix it or whatever. And it started to get to be where those writers would recommend hiring me to their clients. And then it started to be where when someone would have a launch on their JV page, they started bragging that I had reviewed the copy. So that sort of positioned me as being an expert in the field automatically, and it got to be where writers and at strata that were getting hired for those projects would ask me if I did like mentoring or training or anything. So from those people asking is when I started doing my first trainings. So it'd be like, come to this live webinar, we're going to cover my sales letter template that I use to write sales letters. We'll go through it in order. I'll tell you everything that's in it. You get a copy of the template yourself, and you can use it on your own projects. And those were my very first products that came out of these people asking me for, like, do you do coaching? Do you do training? And some of those people I took on as like one-on-one clients, and we'd just get on the phone and I would review their copy. As the copywriter, instead of it being the product owner who would hire me, like I said, it got to be the copywriters who would say, I will just hire you and you review all my copy for my clients. We just won't tell my client. You know what I mean? So like the letter they would turn in was reviewed by me and improved, but their client never knew. You know what I mean? I was like their ace in the hole to make sure their copy was good, and they were getting paid enough to get their payment and pay me. So it was win-win all around.
Nice. So it sounds like sort of you know, just everything you've done, I can tell you leverage each thing like to further your end goal or whatever you're trying to accomplish. And just having that, like, I do reviews. So like I'll review your website, tell somebody that you must know a whole lot about. And man, if this guy was actually build my website, then it would be pretty badass kind of thing.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, man. So one of the main things I want to get you on here, I'm sure, as you know, so we talked about this ahead of time, that I think is just, you know, so we kind of led up to this point of, you know, where you're now into coaching and how you do that. And I want to talk a little bit about sort of the main thing we're here to talk about, which is the copy that you built, which is freaking awesome. I think there's a lot of marketers out there that would like to know how to build a 12,000 person group, highly targeted, super active fans for free, basically. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't put any money into growing that, right?
I mean, like when you used to be able to like pay, like you would just post on Facebook and they had the little button where you could pay like $6 or whatever, and they would show it to extra people. I don't think they do that anymore. I did like a couple of those, but never like ads. You know, never any like little Facebook ads. I did a couple of those paid posts, but really like only a couple. They were not that big of a deal. Most of it, like you said, is just free and word of mouth. And whenever I would speak or do interviews like this, I would promote it, and it just built up that way.
Nice. And did you have any like a list going into it? Did you like mail your list? Hey, I started this.
No, what it is just from being a copywriter and being active and trying to network with the kind of people that were buying sales letters and getting reviews and things. I ended up being in a lot of people's Skype groups for like their coaching clients. Mm-hmm. So if I had done work for them and they were offering like, oh, I'm a business expert and pay me this much a month to be in my coaching club, and they would have a Skype group, they would say, hey, you review my copy, do you want to jump in this group? And when someone has a copy issue, you can just like, you know, say what you want to say and maybe they'll hire you or whatever. So it was like a networking thing. And from that, excuse me, I had my own Skype group that I think had maybe 100 people in it. And like I said, these were all personal contacts. It was either people I had written copy for, people whose material I had reviewed, or copywriters who knew me that had used some of my templates or whatever. And from there, when I decided to grow it, because Skype groups can only have like 300 people, I moved it over to Facebook, because Facebook has groups of infinite size. And I'm like, instead of going and starting a forum and installing some software and trying to convince people to go, I'll just stick it in Facebook because everybody's already in Facebook. I'm spending too much time on Facebook anyway. I'll make my own little group in there and then add people to it, and maybe I'll make it work and work to my advantage. Um, and it worked out really good. And what happens is the way I ran the group is that there was no group or website that I could find that talked about the kind of stuff that I wanted to talk about, which was just kind of persuasion in general, the kind of things that people don't talk about in marketing, like how con artists trick people or how cult leaders control people's minds. Just the kind of freaky, weird stuff that people don't like to necessarily talk about in open public because people think it's creepy or whatever. But marketing dudes all love that kind of thing.
Right.
So the idea was I'm going to make that group and I'm going to feed it the kind of content that I would want to read, and I'm going to deliberately add people. So like whenever I would see someone in a different group or on my own timeline or whatever posting the kind of thing that I like, that I wanted in the group, I would say, hey, come join my group and share that, and I promise everybody's going to love it. And I would leave an awesome comment, and because I left an awesome comment, all my followers would jump in and be like, oh, I like it too. So it was like giving them a little reward for posting in my group, and then it sort of was a repeating process. The next time they thought of something to post, they'd come sticking in my group. So eventually, the group, like, it needed about 500 members or so before it was self-sustaining, where like I could leave it alone for a weekend and I would come back and they had posted stuff on their own and they were talking among themselves. They didn't even notice I was gone. And once you get to that point, it's what I like to think of as like a self-warming list. So like I could go away and they're going to be in there all day, every day talking about copywriting constantly. So if ever I want to sell anything related to copywriting, like they're hot, they're ready for it because they've been in there talking about it the whole time. So I don't have to do any warm-up. I don't have to activate the list. I don't have to share some content and be sneaky and pivot into launching anything. I just drop an offer directly in there, and they're going to want it because they're warmed up to it already. And that's how it's worked. So inside that group, it's primarily a discussion group, and it's a group that I like being a member of. Like, it's not Colin's fan club. It's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist only for me to sell my products. It exists for the topic that people are very passionate about, but it happens to be right in the same niche that I sell stuff in. So without being annoying or bothering people or marketing to them constantly, I just keep releasing things like templates for how to write emails, templates for how to write a sales video, templates for how to write a webinar promotion sequence. The kind of things that either product creators are in that group to learn how to write, or things that other copywriters in that group would like to be able to write for their clients. And people buy those trainings, and it's just grown from there. That's my whole business now. So I don't do any consulting. I don't do any writing for hire. I just serve that group, and the sales of those products inside the group are more than enough to support my business.
Dude, that's pretty awesome. Just in general, like, I hope somebody was listening. I hope you guys pay attention to that. I mean, just how you sort of came from, we've throughout the interview, it's where you started to where you are now. And, in my question it says, these days you have a massive group of 12,000 people, super active. Did you ever think it was going to get that big, or did you have a goal in mind when you started it, or did you just kind of wing it?
Well, I mean, the big trick is once you can make it self-sustaining, it will just grow and grow and grow on its own, right? Like once you don't have to be in charge of like getting people to join and making sure stuff is getting posted. Once they're in there and they like it and they're showing up because they want to and they're running it without you, that is the point at which it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing because people are going to share it with people they know. They're going to bring their friends in. Facebook even promotes it for me because, like, if you join a group in the right-hand column, if you're looking on the desktop, they'll be like, people who are in this group are also in that group. And my group is very popular among other marketing groups. So lots of people end up in the cult of copy that I don't know. At first, the only way you ended up in there is if you'd seen me talk at an event or read about it somewhere or something like that. But after a while, it got to be like people were just showing up and I wouldn't do anything. They would just pop into the group and be like, "Oh, this is great. I love it. Like there's no other group like this." And it's just because like I said, I built the group as if I was a fan of the group. So like
Yeah. Like what
anybody,
matters.
yeah, anybody doing some kind of like spammy crap that you see in the usual marketing groups where you're like, hey, sign up for my JV, whatever, like that gets deleted because that's boring. I don't want to talk about that. That's not a conversation. So it's about making those conversations interesting, and the advantage of it being on Facebook is that the way people use Facebook is they're using it to keep from doing something else that they should be doing instead. So if someone's on Facebook and they're supposed to be messing around with something else, but they're like, oh, look, I just got another little red number notification. I'm going to go see what that is. I have a very interesting group, and it's a bunch of smart people talking about very entertaining topics. It keeps people there, you know what I mean? Instead of it being like, they have to remember, oh, I got to remember to go check and see what's happening on cultofcopy.com and read it. They're already on Facebook. You know what I mean? It's like mixed in with the thing that they're using to distract themselves all day anyway. So I just use that to my advantage and feed interesting content into that Facebook engine, which Facebook likes because they don't want people to ever leave Facebook.
Right. Yeah.
So Facebook's all about what I do because I make sure people stay on Facebook. Um,
But I see something in my newsfeed pretty much. I see a few things in my newsfeed every day because I waste more time than I should on there too. And it'll be like so and it posted in the cult of copy, and then you click on that, and boom, you're in the cult of copy now, reading, and then you get
mhm.
other things, and yeah, just like it literally shows up in everybody's newsfeed like all the time.
Yeah, that's the way groups work, is that when you join the group, by default, notifications are set to be on. So anytime someone posts, you get a notification. And then once you comment on a post, every time someone comments, you get another reminder.
Yeah, and it's almost like I noticed, especially with your particular group, there's a lot of like everybody's trying to be real clever and post something cool, or post something funny or different, and
Yeah,
then
yeah. It's like there's this competition vibe where people try to like find the coolest, weirdest thing to post. And like I said, they feel a pride in the community, and I think that's something a lot of people who try to start online communities mess up because they pick the wrong thing to build the group around as far as people taking ownership and feeling like they belong to that group. So like a lot of people will start a group where they're like, this group is customers of this product I made, and then they dump all those people into a group. But those people don't have anything to talk to each other about. There's no, like they're not going to sit there and talk about your product all day, every day. They're going to
yeah,
run out of stuff to talk about. And then even then, the best people to have in a group are the people who don't do anything else but sit in Facebook all day and write stuff. So like there's I call them chatterboxes. It's the people who like post 50 times a day on Facebook and leave tons of comments and engage and do all this stuff. You want those people in your group. They don't necessarily buy anything. Maybe they're just bums and they sit at home on Facebook all day. I have no idea. They're not necessarily good customers, but those are the people that make the group fun to be in because those are like the community members. Everybody knows them. They engage. They have conversations. So those are the kind of people you want to put in your group, and then you want to give them a topic that's bottomless. And if you like copywriting and persuasion, it's the kind of thing where you can't get enough of it. Like you will read every article you can, every one you come across. You're never sick of it. It's not ever boring.
because
And
like help you. Sorry, go ahead.
no. I was gonna say when what's good about getting a group like that keeps growing, the cult of copy is like a fire hose now instead of a water fountain. You literally can't read it all. There's too much. So if you love that topic, if you're addicted to that topic, there's no better place for you to be because like it's the primo stuff and it never stops and it's constant. And if you love that topic, there's no need for you to go anywhere else because it's either going to eventually get posted in the cult by someone, or else it's not worth your time because there's so much other good stuff in the cult already to keep reading.
Yeah, like good luck if you want to go try and make another copywriting group, these days. Yeah, cult the copy, I got it, But a couple of the things I want to point out that I was thinking about when we were talking is one, like what you said about creating a group around your product or your whatever. What I noticed, because I'm in some of those groups too, and I'll see people, they'll drop an offer in there, it gets like one like and no comments, right?
Hmm.
And it makes them look like kind of douchey, right? Whereas
Right.
I noticed like you'll drop an offer and it's just like boom, 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 yes, sweet, awesome, comment, like, and then it's just free exposure, like exponential without you doing anything but making a freaking post on Facebook.
Yeah, it's definitely spoiled me because like there's a ton of stuff I know I could be doing that would make the business more robust and make me a lot more money. And it's sort of, I've avoided doing that because like I used to do it for a living, so I kind of don't want to. So things like having an email list and emailing my members when I offer a new product, I don't do that. I just post it in the group, and if people don't see it and miss it, oh well. And tons of people miss it and they get mad at me, but I'm like, I just haven't done that other stuff. Like it would make a ton more money if I did, and I'm working on it at my own glacial pace. But it's the kind of thing where, like you said, it's part of the conversation. So the stuff that I offer is right up their alley, and then because of what we talk about in the group, they like reading promotions because they're like, oh, what kind of sneaky trick is he using in this ad for this product? So like they comment on that aspect of it, which is great.
Because that
But
just gives you more and more views, right?
yeah, but it really does work in any niche because some of the people I've taught how to make groups and stuff, like they have groups about fitness or uh, motivation or art or different things like that. It really does work the same way if the products you sell fit with the topic of the group, because that's the trick, is the free content they get keeps them warmed up without you having to do anything. And then all you have to do is drop a related offer in there and they jump all over it. But what happens with a lot of marketing groups, like you said, if I have a bunch of people who bought whatever is the hot topic, like if I released a Kindle product, how to write books on Kindle,
Yeah.
if I'm a freelance marketing education guy or whatever, my next product might be like Facebook ads and have nothing to do with Kindle, and I drop it in the group and no one's interested because that's not even what the group is about.
Yeah.
So that's a mistake a lot of people make. But if you build a group around the topic and all the offers are on that topic, like they're going to eat it up. Like whether it's an affiliate offer or your own products or whatever, they'll definitely jump on it over and over and over again because, like I said, they're addicted to that topic. And if you make one of those fire hose type environments where there's no reason for them to go anywhere else, because if they spent all day every day reading your group, they wouldn't finish, then you're done. You own them on that topic. They're just going to come to you. You're the best place automatically. Why would they go anywhere else? And then it's very easy to just float offers in front of them that they're going to love.
Thanks. I was trying to resist interrupting you. No, just one thing I wanted to point out that really stood out to me, and it took me a long time to get this lesson, is what you said is you created a group that you would like. And like for a long time, I was always trying to, like, what can I put out there that everybody else would like? And one day it sort of clicked for me. I was like, what do I like? What would I listen to? And I bet you there's a whole bunch of people out there just like me. And focus on attracting those people by just simply posting stuff that you would like. It's really a great concept.
Yeah, and if it's appropriate for you, where you can build an audience around a topic that you really do love and you really like writing about and making videos about and sharing it with people, there's no separation between like your fun and your business, and you really enjoy it and you care about the quality of it, and it starts to be like, the focus of it is not about the business side, and that's what makes the business really start to thrive without you trying so hard. because you're focused on making something cool, and you're the only measure of whether it's cool or not. And if it's not cool, you get rid of it, and you keep adding more cool stuff that you like in it. You start to build this audience that's very synced and very overlapped with your own taste,
Hmm.
and it makes it so that you can never mess up, because like if you like it, the group's gonna like it. If you don't like it, they're not gonna like it. You know what I mean? Because like if your taste doesn't match up, they leave. But eventually you end up with this group that's so synced with your own taste, you literally can't like mess up. You can't make anybody mad. You can just be yourself at all times, and everybody in that group is down with it, because if they weren't, they would have left already. But as the group grows, I mean, Facebook's got like 1 billion people in it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like my group seems like a lot because we have almost 13,000 people, because that's big for a group. But that's not really that many people. Like I know people with email lists that are much more huge than that, but that email list is full of people who only have like passing interest. I have 13,000 addicts, like people who can't get enough of that topic. And you really don't need that many more, but at the same time, like it's going to keep growing. I get like 100 new members a week. I don't do anything to get that. They just show up, and the group keeps growing, and then they keep buying the stuff that I already have for sale in the group when they find it. And like it's like
Awesome.
it's weird. Like I don't have to do a lot of the stuff that a lot of other internet marketers have to do. I just have to keep making the group cool. As long as I make sure the group's cool and the quality of it doesn't drop, the audience will keep growing, and that means more customers for the products I already have. I keep making more products too. So like my income from the group grows each year, even though all I do is participate, which I would do anyway for free if it was someone else's group. Like if that group already existed and I could just be a member, I would just be a happy member. I wouldn't ever have started my own.
Dude, that makes a lot of sense. And one thing that just, like I said, I like to kind of share my takeaways from what you're saying because it's awesome stuff. The foresight to, okay, don't just make a group about this one product or one topic that you're not going to be able to, because it sounds, there's a couple of keys that I'm noticing. Obviously, the one is create, something that you would like. It'll grow on its own if by just being yourself and being real instead of having to be fake or try to be somebody you're not. And then on top of that, something that you're going to be able to consistently create new products about, because that's one of the ways that you
Hmm.
consistently monetize it. So like whatever niche you're in, fitness or whatever, don't make it so specific like leg workouts group, then what happens when
Yeah,
you want to
I would say the products that you would offer would be specific and narrow, but the group should be a little bit widened out. So I didn't start a group about writing sales letters. I started a group about copy in general. And even then, like it's grown past that. Now it's just sort of like just persuasion. It doesn't even have to be writing specifically. Um, you want the group topic to be big enough so that all sorts of interesting things can get posted, but it's the products that you post inside the group that let you narrow it down to individual interests within that bigger group. So not everybody who's in my group does webinars. So not a lot of people overall in the group need like the webinar template training that I did. But if they're in the group and they need it, they'll get mine instead of going to shop around elsewhere because they're already in the group, right?
make sense.
So the real trick of it is just like I said, you build it around your own interest, and you want to the interest should be something that you like enough to spend money on information or products or whatever. It should be something that people are willing to put money into. And as long as it's that, like if you go to the bookstore and there's a book in print about that topic, you can sell information about that topic.
Oh,
Because printing a book and putting it on a bookshelf is like hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment for that publishing company to make that happen. So for them to put that money up, somebody did the research to make sure like someone somewhere is buying this book. So you can use that as a shorthand. If you have an idea for a topic that you think this would work with, go look. Are there magazines about it? Are there books about it? what kind of ads are in those magazines. That's the kind of stuff you could sell. Because if someone's buying a magazine to read that information and there are ads in that magazine, that means the people who read that magazine are buying that stuff in those ads. So therefore, if you have your own channel of that kind of information that people come to for free to read those articles or watch those videos, it makes sense that the same kind of things that are in those ads, you could sell those things to that same audience, right? Like the research is already done for you. You don't have to do a lot of work as far as that goes.
That makes perfect sense, man. Perfect.
Yeah.
It's something I've always been a fan of too. Like if somebody's already selling it in a different avenue, and you just took it and put it on Facebook, where there wasn't really a whole thing on Facebook, you know, or if there is a group on Facebook, so maybe that doesn't work for you as well, then create a YouTube channel, or yeah.
Yeah, and the real trick is so many people look at a Facebook group and they think of it as like a blog or an email list where I have to post this information and then people respond to it, and then I post and then people respond. But the real thing with a group is that it's about the conversations that happen. So if you're on social media and you're engaging with people on this topic, you want the people that you have the best conversations with, that you love interacting with, those people need to be in your group, because it's entertaining for people who are fans of that topic to see smart people discussing it. That's what they're there for. They don't want necessarily just the content by itself. They can get that content elsewhere, right? Like there's no articles we're posting from other websites that someone with a Google search can't find. What they can't get anywhere else in the group is the group's interaction with it. So like there's popular people in my group that comment on like nearly every thread. They're on Facebook all day. They're well known. They're like online friends with each other. There's like little cliques and sub-communities. Like we know each other. Sometimes we've gone to conferences and met in real life. But it's those conversations that really drive interest in the group. They don't so much want to see what the article's about. They want to see what Michael's going to say about it, what Jameis is going to say about it, what Caliban's going to say about it, what Neil's going to say about it. And they want to see the back and forth between those people that they sort of feel like they know. It's like water cooler talk, but very specifically focused with only cool, interesting, smart people.
Nice. Dude, yeah, I get it. Makes perfect sense. And it's sort of one question that I had as like a secondary. I'm just curious about like, so if anybody's friends with you on Facebook, they would know this. You kind of post on a regular basis pretty like semi-controversial stuff that sort of pisses people off here and there.
Yeah.
Do you do that on purpose, and is that a way to like lead people to your group or to pull those, you know, controversial talkers out and then invite them into your group, or is that just something you do?
Well, it's one of those things that I do anyway because that's just how I am.
Yeah.
But it is beneficial, and I do deliberately use it to engage people. So, excuse me, it's allergy season here, so if I sound stuffed up, that's what it is. The trick of it is like I'm sort of, I don't know what you call it, like a provocateur. So I'm not interested in just making a comment and then not talking about it. Like if I post something, it's because I want people to interact with it. And I do deliberately try and phrase things, even if it's on my personal timeline, in a way where I'm trying to provoke a reaction, because that is what's fun for me. I like interacting with people.
Yeah.
But that has the side effect of the people who like that kind of engagement and like talking with me, a lot of times will end up in my group, because most of the people I end up friends with on Facebook who don't actually know me in real life, the reason we know each other is because we're in online business in some way or other. So my group sort of has a natural interest for them when they fall into it, but that's just a practice that's good for social media in general, is if you can post in a way that triggers conversations, that's going to make people respond. And because of what I did for a living, writing copy, I do know the tricks of writing things in a way that will make people say, hey, wait a minute, I wasn't gonna, but you said that in a way where I have to stop what I'm doing and comment.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a huge number of tricks that you can do to do that kind of thing, but you know, it's like if you look at clickbait headlines, like from Upworthy or Reddit or any of those sites that have the kind of headlines that are like, I have to click that and see what it is. It's all similar tricks like that, like things that provoke people's curiosity or mess with their sense of identity. Or one of the easiest ones is if you post something in a way that people feel like you have it wrong, there's like an almost unstoppable urge for them to want to butt in and correct you.
Yeah.
And then, so if you can phrase something in a way where they want to butt in and correct you, but then you're ready for that with something to flip it around and correct them, that is like an awesome trigger for starting a conversation that's going to have like 200 comments. Because
Like almost purposely be wrong.
yeah. So like
Awesome.
a lot of times I'll deliberately post something that's meant to be like satirical or sarcastic, but I won't put any indication that it is. So someone has to comment and be like, I don't know if you're being serious or not, but here's what I really think. You know, like, but
Sorry.
again, that's just how I am naturally, and it does complement what I do as far as growing the group. But that's part of why I think I took the copywriting so well, because I had a natural interest in messing with people. I tell people all the time, they're like, well, what was your background? How did you, like, why were you good at copywriting if you had never done it before? And what I tell them is I went to art school, and then art school, you have to like paint a painting based on an assignment, right? And
Yeah.
then when it comes time to be graded, everyone puts their painting on an easel and everyone's standing in the room, and you go one painting by one, and the guy who painted it, or girl, whoever, gets up and explains what they meant to do, and then everyone gets to comment on it. And what I learned very quickly is that the story you tell about your painting is way more important for your grade than what is actually on the canvas, because you can always say, like, I wanted to do this super awesome thing, and it was going to be this, this, and this, but we only had a week, and I couldn't get the supplies I needed in time. You know what I mean? So like you're selling them the bullshit. The object makes no difference whatsoever. And I got to where like by the time I was in my junior year, I was turning in the same painting for different professors for a different assignment. I would just make up a different story so that it fit the assignment. And like other students who were in the program with me knew, and nobody ever ratted me out. But a couple of times they were mad, and they're like, I know what you're doing. You're just turning in the same painting. And I'm like, yeah, it fits. Like, you can look at that painting and know I understand how to do what we're supposed to be doing. Like, why am I going to waste my time proving it again to another guy just because he doesn't know that I did it already last year? You know, like, that's not serving anyone. But they thought it was like cheating, and I mean, I guess in a way it was. But I digress. The point of that is, I, I learned how to bullshit in art school without realizing it, in a good way. Like, it's a good kind of bullshitting. It's a way of taking something that's normal and you explain it in a way where people actually see it as being better than it is. And that's basically what marketing is. That's like what writing sales copy is. You're taking a normal thing that's this big and you're describing it in a way so that the person who reads that letter can't help but see it as this big. You know,
Yeah.
like, you're not lying to them. You're just making them see it in a much more amazing way.
When you say that, it makes me think of like those like Viagra commercials where it's like the guys like this will make you bleed and you may have an erection for 4 hours, and it's like on the picture it's like happy people living a great life, and that's just what
Yeah,
it means.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
like that one in particular, but like all these like any drug commercial, look at it and see how it's like they're not just saying, "Oh, this pill helps this one disease." They're like, "This pill improves your entire life." And
Mm-hmm.
you'll go from being sad and alone to like running on the beach with your family and your dog while the sun sets. You know, that has nothing to do with
You
what the
find
pill
that
is or
it's
what it
entirely.
does.
Sorry, what?
Yeah,
I
I
cut
said
you off.
that. Yeah, I said it has nothing to do with what the pill is or what it does, but they make you see it in a much bigger way by showing you this visual story.
Makes sense, man. That's some good stuff. Just thanks, dude. This is really good. I think everybody's gonna enjoy it.
I hope
Um,
so.
yeah, we'll find out in the comments. No, just um, so I had a few more questions, but really
Sure.
honestly, like, I mean, we're kind of good, I think. Like, basically, one, you know, I don't know. Just trying to look and see if you sort of answered a lot of it already. I mean, I know we've kind of ran longer than normal, but so, and you already sort of said it, but let's say for somebody who's just sort of starting out, this is just a good way to kind of wrap it up with a cult of copy. Like, okay, Colin, that sounds awesome. I'd love to make my own group and go do this, but I don't have the background or the authority that you sort of had going into it. Or, you know, I'm
Right.
not speaking on stage, and etc. Um, any advice that you might have for somebody like that that wants to duplicate what you've done but doesn't have quite the background that you did?
Um, yeah, I would say it. Like when I got into writing copy, I didn't have any background in writing copy. I was just at a company that needed somebody to write stuff, and like I was a good mimic. Like I could look at other sales letters and write things that seemed like they were the same thing, you know what I mean? Like I could imitate it pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I really learned on the job. So don't think a lack of experience means that you can't break into it, because I broke into it with zero experience. All you got to do is be passionate and be willing to learn and be able to learn. And then when you go freelance, like I said, the biggest lesson I can give anybody in any avenue is that no matter what field you try to go in, there's going to be this establishment, and it's going to make you feel like you have to learn the ropes before you can get accepted, and you have to pay your dues and grind it out and do all this stuff to establish yourself. That's all bullshit. You don't have to do any of that. You need two things. You need results, which you can work hard and get independent of anybody like saying you're cool or whatever. All you have to do is figure out how to do it and try until you get it right. And then once you have the results, it's about using those results to build your story around. So I had my sales letters that had done this business for these like very prestigious people. I could have done nothing with that and kept taking more clients, and I could still be writing sales letters to this day, writing 6 or 7 of them a year for 6 figures. But instead, I took the story of having written those sales letters and used those as credentials to sell other things that were less work, but use the same expertise. So, for example, I use the exact same knowledge to sell reviews of copy where I would critique it as I would to write it. And I couldn't charge as much, but it was drastically less work to read a sales letter and tell you what's wrong with it than for me to actually be the one to fix it. So it's always about doing that. Like there's no dues to pay, there's no ropes you have to learn. You just get your results and then use those results to increase your prices. And then as you're building your business, a lot of people who look to me for advice are like, man, you don't seem to work very much. You slack a lot. Like you're like there's a lot of people in our industry, and you know this from just going to these conferences. We'll be at the table drinking beer at a marketing conference, and some guy will be like, oh, what time is it? I got to run up to my room and write an email for my list. I never have to do that. You know, like I'm on my own schedule, and people ask how you get to that point, and it's that trick I was just talking about where you look at your business at least once a quarter, look at everything you're doing, and say, okay, how can I do the same amount of work but charge more, or charge the same amount for what I'm doing this but offer less? So like what can I chop out of this activity so it's not as much work but still charge the same amount? Or the other way around where you can do the same amount of work that you're already doing but raise your price. Those two things are really, really easy to do. Like if you want to see if you can charge more, the next client you do the exact same activity, ask for 15% more. Just try it. What are they going to do? Say no? If they say no, then you can just go back to your regular price that you were happy with. But it won't hurt you to ask for 15% more. And if they say yes, and then you deliver it to them and they're happy, you're never going to go back to your old price. You're just going to keep finding more people who are happy to pay the higher price. And then it's the same thing for the other way where you charge a client 10 grand for a launch package. The next client you go to say, okay, well, it's 10 grand for just the sales letter. And if you want like emails and upsells and all that, that's an add-on. I guarantee you're going to find somebody who's going to say, okay, like you'll go from there. So it's, as long as you keep doing those two things, you'll endlessly be amazed with how you keep getting more and more of your time back, and you don't have to do all kinds of things that you don't really want to do, but you keep making more and more money even though you're spending less and less time. And then eventually you get to the point where I am, where I can just invent whole new projects to do. Like, I'm going to do a YouTube show. I'm going to do it once a week. Like, I don't have to make time to do that. I'm not doing anything, Like, if my group's running itself, all I have to do is not mess around on Facebook all day, one day a week, and I have the time to do any of those projects that I want. And like, I built up that audience, so now I can go back and fill in those blanks. Like, oh, I'll write an autoresponder chain that'll actually cross-sell my product. So if you bought my sales letter template, I'll say, hey, maybe you want this email template. I don't do that right now. And that's like free money just waiting there for me to go pick up. But I have the time to work on that because I'm not booked constantly, because I always try to take back as much time from my business as I can. Whereas I think a lot of people mistakenly go about where they'll figure out something that makes money, and the first thing they do is try to pack their calendar with as many occasions that they can do that one thing for that same amount of money, and all that'll do is eat up all your time and effort, and you won't ever make more money. You basically gave yourself a job that you'll never get a raise. But if you're an entrepreneur, like you're in charge of giving yourself your own raise, and you do that by raising your prices and by taking your time back. So that's my biggest advice, is take your time back so you can do with it what you want instead of selling it constantly.
Dude, that is awesome. That is great advice. I could not have said it remotely better myself. Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me. I'll just kind of wrap it up here because I don't want to make it take forever. But we got to get you your time to get back on Facebook. Yeah, long story short is just like, instead of trying to figure out how to do more, how to do less and make more, and constantly sort of having that mind frame. And it seems to me like, like the time freedom, and I just know this from talking to you, is the big thing for you. And then once you free up your time, it's like, well, I want to make more money doing this, then I can go do that. You have that like ability, which a lot of people don't have. Makes perfect sense to me, man. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I mean, especially if you're in the position like me, which I know a lot of people are from going to these conferences, where you have a family, you're growing a business, you're trying to get it to the point where it provides for all of your family. The last thing you want to do if you're an entrepreneur and you're in a position where you're trying to build a business to support your family is build a business that takes you away from your family, because then you didn't gain anything. You might be like paying the bills, but they don't have dad or they don't have mom, because mom's constantly working to pay the bills. And then if you do that, you may as well just get a job and work for somebody else, because you're not in charge of your time anymore. So that's something anybody that I coach or teach, they're like, you just seem to slack, and you don't like, you don't like, I do over deliver on stuff, but it's because I under promise. That's another secret.
That's a good one.
If you want to over deliver, don't work harder, just promise less than what you plan on giving, and then it seems like you over delivered.
Good stuff, yeah.
But yeah, the trick is, like I said, always think about how you can scrape back your time out of your business, because you want it to work for you. And so many people I know put too much focus on doing the work and filling up their calendar, and then they can't scrape it back. Because if you build, a mid six-figure business that you have to work 40 hours a week to fill it up, it takes 40 hours. Like, the only way you can run that same business is if you get someone else to spend the 40 hours instead of you.
And then you got to teach.
Right. Whereas if you build the kind of business where you're constantly making it take less and less time while making it make more and more money, it's just way more beneficial to giving you your time so you can spend it how you want. And I hope that doesn't seem too like mumbo jumbo or anything. It's really very simple and practical. Like I said, just the next client you have, ask for more money for the same job, or else the same amount of money, but just offer to do a little bit less, because then it'll take you less time, and then you just keep finding clients that are happy with that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And something you said that stood out to me, and something I've done a lot more in the last year, is keeping my, big picture. We're on big picture blueprints, but big picture in mind. Like, what is my goal? Why am I doing this? Like, what is it for? My whole goal is that I want to be able to provide for my family and spend as much time as I can doing whatever the hell I want that I enjoy, not
Yeah,
work my ass
and
off at the computer. And so
that's
everything does it line up with that, is all I was gonna say. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like if you in your mind's eye picture having a business where you only work 4 hours a week, like the 4 hour work week or whatever, don't work 40 hours a week to build your business because then the business you end up with takes 40 hours. If you want it to only fit in 4 hours a week, don't spend more than 4 hours a week on it because it'll eat up all the extra time you give it. And the way to do it is to just, like I said, just keep chopping it down so that it's less and less time and more money. And eventually you'll be like me where you just you do whatever you want most of the time. It's very, very little effort to keep it going once you get it set up. But then if I wanted to really blow it up and really kick ass one year, I have like 40 hours, like 35 hours a week that I can put into it if I want to work full time. Like I'm not too busy otherwise. So
Yeah.
it's nice to have that kind of freedom. And like I said, the biggest trick is taking your time back because you don't want to give it away.
Yes. Well, that's freaking awesome. I think that's a good little ending point. If you want to waste your time and give it to Colin, go to cultocopy.com. Right?
Yeah.
That,
So under my name there.
yeah, yeah. And what's cool, he doesn't even have a website. He'll take you straight to the Facebook group, and you can
Mhm.
go there and spend hours and buy all his stuff and everything. I'm just kidding, but dude, I just want to say thanks, man. This is the longest interview I've had so far, and I'm not
Oh,
surprised.
nice.
I expected it might go a little long, and I don't even, plenty of awesome nuggets. Just thanks for taking the time.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Anytime.
Yeah, for sure. And, just thanks, and we'll see you soon. And everybody make sure you check out his Close a Copy if you're not already a member. I'll put a link below this video or this post. Also, I have a little post-it note here to remind you to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you don't mind, if you haven't already. I'm terrible at that, but I noticed that I want to get a little more. Let us know what you think. If you liked what Colin said, if you have some similar experiences, or if anything helped you, just put a little thing in the comments. I'll be in there. Maybe Colin will jump in there, and we'll be a little conversation going. So,
Awesome.
right on. Thanks, man. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
See you, everybody.